What is up, YouTube? PokePrimer here, primed and ready to be back in NPBF. Season 13, ladies and gentlemen. No more monotype bullshit. It's time. We are here and ready to rock. This is going to be one hell of a season. We have taken it down to the basics. This season, it is going to be a straight-up Galar Dex draft. Pick 11 Mons, rock out with those 11 Mons, and just have fun. So that was the goal with this season, and hoo boy. The draft went not at all how I planned it. In fact, I used the max number of transactions. Then I had an extra transaction because there was a mistake made that I helped to rectify. So I ended up changing over half of my team post-draft. So, yeah. That was pleasant. No, excuse me. But yeah. So I'll go over as I get to each pick. I'll mention what ones were planned swaps and what ones I kind of just did on the fly. So we were pick number 15 in the draft out of 16. So obviously we were waiting forever to get stuff, but we had a pretty good 1-2 punch combo kind of, and whenever we got a chance to pick. So that was nice, I guess. But to start things off, originally I drafted Raikou because I really wanted to test out Raikou since it got things like Scald and whatnot. I figured that'd be a good idea to have, just test it out. But then, post-draft, I noticed I had a bit of a ground weakness. I didn't really have anything to deal with ground types at all. Really well. I didn't have an immunity. So, I ended up, in my post-draft transactions, I ended up swapping Raikou for Zapdos. And, Spiky Burb is here. I promise the next singles league that I'm drafting for, I will pick Raikou. I promise. I will do so. I'll make sure of it. We got the Zapdos here. I've used Zapdos so many times in the past. It got so many tools this generation. I'm actually using it in another league right now. Not going so hot, but that's just mostly on me and my actions in that league, because I'm not really that's the league I kind of put off the most, that put the least effort and time into. So it is what it is. But Zapdos is pretty awesome. Pressure to stall things, static, which is super annoying. For those of you who saw my week 2 battle in JLPC, you will know my feelings on static Zapdos, because it's one of the many factors that cost me that matchup. So it is what it is. Still was a fun game, regardless, and I would happily do it again. But yeah, we got Zapdos. Got a lot of new tools with Hurricane and whatnot this gen, so I'm going to try to utilize those to the best of my ability. I don't really have a lot to say about Spiky Burb. It's Spiky Burb. And our upstairs neighbors are vacuuming. I think that's the upstairs neighbors. Could be some work going on outside, I can't tell. Oh, it's snowing. That's pleasant. I hate winter. Next up is another Pokemon that I really, really wanted to try, and I couldn't get his emo counterpart, so I decided to pick up Frostallion the Glastrier. Yeah, it just looks like it'd be a fun one. Like, obviously defensively, even though it balances itself out, because while it has a really bad defensive typing, ice typing is terrible defensively, it has such good defenses that, like, this thing's gonna tank neutral and resisted hits like it's nothing. This thing is going to chew hits. It will be EV'd to chew so many hits. And the fact that it's, like, really slow is going to kind of form a very clear strategy that comes along with this team. Because I'm getting back to my roots. I'm getting back to my bulky offensive roots. And Glastrier is perfect for that. Chilling Neigh is just Moxie. So that's always good. So if I can get this thing going and get a few essentially Moxie boosts, this thing has all the coverage moves I need. Nothing crazy, but like everything that I actually think I need to really like run through a lot of these teams. And I think that Glastrier is going to put in a lot of work for us. I'm really, really excited. I hope it does as well as I hope it does. Because it's definitely going to be a mon that I think I can enjoy using a lot. You know, with my extreme love of bulky offense and whatnot. Now, with grabbing Glastrier, I basically telegraphed part of what I was going to be doing. And I wasn't going to go full on with this strategy, but I was kind of talked into it. Thanks, Dave. I was just going to grab, like, maybe, like, one other slow offensive mon and then, like, 2 setters at most. And I was going to go like a small Trick Room core within like a regular team. But that kind of went off the rails pretty quickly, I feel like. I think I got like 3 setters now, 3 or 4. I don't even know. But the one I wanted the most was Hard Body the Reuniclus. A nice little reference back to the old Pokemon ciphers, the early ones, where it was just Shofu and Scoot. I am Hard Body, you are just Reuniclus. Nice little reference to that line. But Reuniclus is our first Trick Room setter for the team. Great abilities in Overcoat, Magic Guard, and Regenerator, all of which I feel can be incredibly useful depending on the matchup. You know, regen for the healing, Magic Guard to prevent things like Life Orb recoil, burn chip, toxic damage, stuff like that. All of which can be really, really useful. Really, really bulky. That 110 HP carries a lot of weight and allows this thing to live a lot of hits. And that 125 special attack makes this thing hit so stupid hard. It has amazing coverage. It's just... This mon is just so good that there's... Honestly, like, even though it's here mainly just to set the Trick Room for the most part, I could honestly see Reuniclus I could definitely see Reuniclus picking up like a 2 or 3 mon sweep in a matchup at some point throughout the course of the season. It is just that good of a Pokemon, and I do thoroughly love Reuniclus. Next up, we have Trick Room Setter number 2, and this is actually another one of my post-draft transactions. Okay, so one of my things when I was getting closer to the end of the draft, because I realized I was low on Trick Room Setters and Abusers, is I was trying to get a bulkier grass type, but I'd already kind of had a grass type in Amoonguss. I originally drafted Amoonguss from Tier 2. So when I was looking at what was left, closer to like the mid, like heading towards the late half of the draft, I was like, alright, I can drop Amoonguss, pick up our boy Jenga here, the Snag-Attacka, and then I can drop, I believe I had I had Aggron. Aggron was one of my tier 4s. Because I felt like Aggron could do kind of well in Trick Room. And it shares the exact same typing as Stakataka, so I was like, alright, I can easily just kind of like direct swap those. I was going to drop Aggron and pick up Trevenant. Because Trevenant sets Trick Room, it gave me a Ghost type. It would have been really, really cool. However, good old Imposter James, coach of the Myrtle Magikarps, he picked up Trevenant in the later rounds of the draft. So, losing that one Mon completely threw off a lot of my post-draft plans, and I pretty much went into a full-on scramble to try to fix my team, because, like, literally, I was just going to do the Amoonguss for Stakataka swap, and the Aggron for Trevenant swap. And that was going to be the only swaps I did for my team. Because I genuinely felt like my team was really, really good at that point. And I was super down to just to use it as it was. And unfortunately, that happened. So I went into just full panic mode. And everything got switched around. And it sucks. I'm not the biggest fan of my team. I'll be completely honest with you. It is not... I'm worried about this team. And I could very well see this team changing a lot if it's not working out. Because I genuinely believe that, like, if I can execute this team the way that I'm supposed to, if I can execute this team properly... I think I'll be fine. But, my brain's just kind of shutting off. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, this is what I'm stuck with, and, we'll see how it goes. We have what I feel is not like the hardest schedule in the world, just based on previous experience, like dealing with some of dealing with these coaches and facing off against them. I'm not too worried about most of my schedule, but like there's my division, and my division consists of, and I wish it didn't. My division consists of myself, the Anaheim Appletons, Chris P, other Chris, and the Nottingham Neolegos. You know, the one who went pretty much almost undefeated the entire season last season. Anthony and the Windy City Bolt Strikers, who had a crazy late season resurgence and just zoomed himself into playoffs. He basically fought Rennie tooth and nail for the potential to be the number one person in their division for most of it. And then the Auckland Ambipoms, coached by Liam, who is new to main league. He is the most recent D-League champion. And I've seen him play, and he is really good. So our division is stacked, and it's going to be a very, very rough season. So, yeah. But, hopefully, we'll be able to pull this off, and do well. But back on the important stuff, we have Stakataka. Now, Stakataka is, a fun mon, always a fun mon. Trick Room is literally the only strategy you should ever have for this, because it has base 13 speed. You're not going to get undersped in Trick Room by pretty much anything, aside from, like, Shuckle. I'm pretty sure Shuckle is slower. I think it has, like, base 5 speed, or something like base 10. Regardless, you're not going to get undersped by pretty much anything ever. I've tried underspeeding Stakataka. It is hard. It's very hard to do. So, with that in mind, Trick Room goes up, this thing goes burr. That base 131 attack is massive. Base 101 SPDF is solid, very solid. Like, people just kind of assume, I think, because of how ridiculous this thing's physical defense is at base 211, that its SPDEF is just garbage. But like base 101 SPDEF is not bad. Like, I don't understand why people have that mindset. But yeah, and then obviously the base 211 defense is ridiculous. With how slow he is, Gyro Ball is pretty much guaranteed to be max power against 95% of Pokemon in the game, which is always good because you're firing off a hard-hitting base 120 Steel-type move. I believe it gets up to 120. And just nuking things, which is amazing. And they fucked around this generation, and they gave my boy Body Press. Why would you give a base 211 defense mon like Stack Attack a Body Press? This is not cool. This is not acceptable. Like, just think about how ridiculous this is going to be. Think about how utterly bananas this is to deal with. Not only do you have to, like, tank hits from my stab moves with my base 130 attack, but you have the potential to have to also deal with a fighting type move, a base 80 fighting type move that is using my base fucking 211 defense. Without investment, my defense is already 458. It is already higher than my non-invested attack by a significant margin. It is higher than my max attack with an adamant nature by a decent margin. I am hitting harder, not counting stab and whatnot. I am hitting harder with Body Press than I am with my other attacking moves at any point in time. So, yeah, Stack Attacka is nutty, and I love it. I'm so excited to have it. I'm really, really looking forward to using it this season, and hopefully it pans out for me. But I realize I have been rambling about my situation for way too long. Way too long. So I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit on the rest of these. So next up, we get into our one of our tier 3s. This is another one, and like, I'm really not happy about it, but I let my fiance pick my tier 3s. Because at that point I was building my Fire Water Grass Core, and she picked me Sharpedo and Regidrago. And, you know, not the best mons, but I was excited to give them a shot and try to use them. Especially Regidrago, because I haven't used it yet. Well, once my team was all figured out, I ended up with another Dragon type in tier 5. And it was one that said Trick Room, and I could not get rid of it because I needed as many decent Trick Room centers as possible so that I don't have to, like, struggle too much later on. And it was also one of the only grass types I could afford to get still. So I ended up deciding that Regidrago would have to go. And in order to benefit my team in the best way I could, I swapped it for Hitmonlee, Springman Hitmonlee, so that I could get a spinner on my team. Because that was another issue that my team had, is before I made my swaps, I didn't really have removal on my team. So now I have like Defog with Zapdos, and I have Rapid Spin with Hitmonlee, so that's pretty good. What's really cool about Hitmonlee is this can kind of also act. This is meant more to be acting outside of Trick Room, so people hard prep for Trick Room and try to deal with that. Then I have faster mons like Hitmonlee, who once Trick Room's gone, can come in and really, really mess up a lot of my opponent's teams. You know, Unburden is probably one of the better abilities that it has, but also Reckless works too. This thing just hits ridiculously hard. The base 120 attack. There's not really much else I can say about it. It's really, really good. It fits in a kind of nice speed tier. You know, to help my team out. It's slower than the Zapdos, but it's faster than everything else, which is good. So it kind of it can be very beneficial for us to have Hitmonlee here. Next up, we picked up our Fairy type in Tier 4, and that is going to be Bold Strategy, the Slurpuff. The nickname as a reference to Dodgeball. Bold Strategy, Cotton, see how it works out, or whatever. Classic. Kind of funny. But anyway. Yeah, but we got Slurpuff. Slurpuff is here, doing his thing. A lot of different things you can do with Slurpuff. Obviously, like, there's plenty of Unburden strats you can pull off, but also Sweet Veil if you're dealing with an opponent's team that has things that like to put stuff to sleep. Bring Sweet Veil and utilize that too, potentially. I guess could be an option. I don't know, but mainly Unburden is probably going to be what I use. But I have access to things like Belly Drum and Calm Mind for setup, Cotton Guard for setup, all kinds of things like that. So that can be beneficial to us. This thing has access to Sticky Webs, which despite the fact that my team is incredibly slow, it's still slow. It can still be invested to work with Sticky Webs. Sticky Webs can still put things in, in range of us being able to outspeed them potentially. So that's always a good option to have, at least. And, it also helps with things like Zapdos and Hitmonlee, so they can prosper as well. It's a mon that can sweep. It's a mon that's going to be able to act as a cleric. Wish support, heal bell / aromatherapy, all that kind of stuff. I like using Slurpuff, so I'm excited to use it here again, and fill out that fairy role really nicely. Now we are getting into our last two transactions. We have Imhotep the Cofagrigus. Originally, Cofag is a Tier 3. Originally, I had the Sharpedo, and I swapped it for Cofag because I really, really needed a Ghost type. I just felt like that would be a very useful thing to have. Plus, it gives me more hazard access, gives me access to Toxic Spikes, which is something very nice to have. I actually have 2 Toxic Spike setters. You'll see that in a second. But really, really good defensive mon. Hits decently hard, can set up and do its sweep on its own. But also it's our next Trick Room setter, which is, again, incredibly important when we have so many things that work really well under Trick Room. Not really too much else to say here. Imhotep, if you don't know, is from the Mummy franchise. It's the name of the mummy in Mummy, so that's Cofag. I love Cofag. I draft Cofag a bunch, so no surprise that I have it once again. Next up is the mon that we swapped our Aggron for because we needed a bulky water type, and so we got Quillfish. I actually don't believe I've ever drafted Quillfish, which is cool, so I'm excited to give it a shot. I don't remember if I've ever drafted Quillfish, but while its stats might look incredibly underwhelming, because they do, this thing is a true sleeper pick. Its spin F isn't great, but with Intimidate and that base 85 defense and 65 HP, like, this thing tanks hits really well and can put a lot of Pokemon on the back foot very easily. This thing gets a lot bulkier than you would expect it to. It's a pain in the ass. I've dealt with Quillfish so many times, and it's just annoying if you don't have the right prep for it. It has access to things like Destiny Bond, which could be interesting. I actually didn't even know it got Aqua Jet, so that's kind of cool. Haze to stop sweepers. I can boom. This thing actually gives me access to both Toxic Spikes and regular Spikes, which is really, really good. And just, nice water, poison coverage kind of stuff. Nothing too outlandish, but at the same time could be really, really fun to use. Originally, I was thinking about, like, if I had considered maybe doing, like, Sharpedo for Tentacruel instead, but that was if I was able to nab Trevenant, and obviously that wasn't the case, so that's unfortunate. This thing also does get access to Swift Swim, so I don't remember off the top of my head if anyone grabbed Rain, but that's something we could potentially use against them, so we will see how that goes. If it happens, we'll see if it gets utilized, but most likely it's going to be Intimidate 9 times out of 10. And next up, I lied. We weren't done with our transactions yet. Okay, so what happened is we were doing Galar decks, obviously. Now, I went over the tier list several times. The other admins of the league went over the tier list. Hopefully a couple times. I asked them all to take a look and make sure that I didn't have anything on there that wasn't in Sword and Shield. And we were like 99% positive that we nailed it. However, we did not nail it at all. Because one of the other coaches, Ken, and his Sacramento Excadrills drafted Dodrio. I didn't notice it until I was looking over the teams and whatnot, and I noticed that he picked it up. I was like, fuck. Yeah, we're going to have to fix that. So, in order to fix that, I made kind of a sacrifice. I was like, I'll deal with replacing them on my team if you would be willing to take one of the ones from mine that would replace yours. I had Braviary on my team. That was going to be one of my hazard removers. That was going to be one of my defoggers. But I decided to give that to Ken, and he took it, and then dropped it about 10 minutes later for Ditto. But that's not the point. Regardless. So I took the Dodrio, and then obviously I had to replace it with another mon in Tier 4. And at this point in time, this is post-draft, I actually wasn't able to acquire a fire type because other mons just took priority over grabbing a fire type. So I looked in Tier 4 and I picked up Spitfire the Magmortar. So you kind of notice a lot of like my faster mons outside of Zapdos all kind of fall within like the base 80 tier range or base 80 speed tier range. That's no mistake. It works out nicely because it's a range that, like, if I go negative investment, I can underspeed a lot of, key offensive threats on a lot of teams. I can also underspeed some walls if I choose to. So it's not like I'm not underspeeding, things like base 30 level speeds, obviously, but I can underspeed a lot of other mons like that, and that could be very beneficial to us. So, especially if I use something like the new item Room Service to get that -1 speed or whatever in Trick Room, that could be very beneficial to us. So, hopefully that will pan out. Hopefully I'll be able to utilize that. I'm sure I'll use Room Service at least once or twice this season, or more. This thing doesn't get Trick Room, right? Okay, I didn't think so. It doesn't get Teleport. I actually forgot that this thing got Teleport, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, Magmortar is just a straight-up offensive powerhouse. Hits incredibly hard on the special side, has really, really decent physical attack with that base 95. To utilize it for potential mixed sets or just straight-up physical sets, has access to things like Belly Drum and whatnot for setup. And stop setup with things like Clear Smog. And just overall can be a massive nuisance to my opponent's teams. It has the Flame Body ability, which is going to be the one that probably is on all the time, because getting those fresh 30% Flame Body burns is so clutch sometimes. So why would I ever not want that to happen? I'm really looking forward to using Magmortar. It's one of my favorite fire types to use in draft, and I haven't been able to use it in a while, mostly due to the fact that I haven't played a lot of Nat Dex drafts, and as well as, just it not being in Sword and Shield. So now that it is back, I'm super stoked to use it again. Next up, we have another Trick Room offensive mon / defensive threat in Mudsdale. Budweiser the Mudsdale. Probably never going to use Own Tempo, be completely honest, unless I'm dealing with like a very intimidate heavy team. Most likely going to have stamina 9 times out of 10. But yeah, Mudsdale is awesome. Stamina increasing its defense, boosting up its body presses, which is always good to have. Also has access to things like close combat, standard like ground stab. It gives us an electric immunity, which is nice to have. Never a bad thing to have. And in general, this mon is a pain in the ass to deal with, but also like super duper strong in Trick Room. When we did the doubles season a couple seasons ago, and we had the G-Maxes, I had Mudsdale on my Trick Room centered team with like G-Max hat and stuff, and every time Mudsdale came, even if it didn't get kills, it always did its obscene amounts of damage and like really threatened my opponents, or just kind of like walled out mons and just didn't let them get any progress. Like they'd have to focus a lot on Mudsdale to try to get it off the field, and then that allowed my offensive mons to pick them apart. So Mudsdale definitely is going to be very, very useful for us this season, I'm sure, because it's always been useful for us. So that's pretty cool. But now on to our last mon, which was our tier 5 that sets Trick Room, that took up our Dragon type slot and replaced Amoonguss as our Grass type. Tall Boy, the Alolan Executor. I don't like Alolan Executor, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and say, like, it's my favorite thing. But I wanted another Trick Room setter, and I tried to get as many Trick Room setters that were, where should I put it? Different typings, I guess? Different typings. I wanted to get some type diversity in my setters, so that, like, based upon the matchup, I can make sure that I have the right Trick Room setters available to myself. So that, you know, push come to shove, I don't have to worry too much. I can set Trick Room for free in a lot of instances. And that's kind of was my goal here. So, yeah, I got Alolan Eggy. You know, big tall man himself. Grass and Dragon. The upsides to this mon are, like, and I think I'm guilty of this too, I underestimate this mon a lot. That's mainly because of the 4 times weakness, and I recognize that. But looking at this mon on paper, it's incredibly good. It's got some decent abilities with Frisk and Harvest as options, so always really good stuff. Look at these stats. 95, 85, 75. Incredible defensive spread. And then 105, 125 for offenses? That's pretty strong. I had a lot of 125 special attack Pokemon. How many is that? That's 1, 2, 3. So it's only 3. I'm just over-exaggerating things, but even still, it's weird that it happened 3 times. But yeah, all really, really strong, really strong offensively. Like, look at, it's got a decent amount of coverage across its move pool. Obviously, it has its, Grass and Dragon stab, but it still has access to Psychic-type moves like its original form. It's got access to Knockoff. It's got Steel coverage, Fire coverage, Fighting coverage, Rock coverage. It's just such a fun mon. It has access to Teleport, which I did not know until this minute. So that's pretty cool. Wish? I didn't know you got Wish. What the fuck? Since when did you get Wish? Okay, hold on. We might have something here, guys. We might have something. This might just be worth it. Wow, that's crazy. I already can see a whole lot of different potential options I can make out of this amazing Pokemon. So, yeah, we're definitely gonna get a lot of fun out of Mr. Alolan Executor here. I'm really looking forward to using it now that I've seen. I don't think I've never drafted this. I know that much. I've never drafted this Mon. So it could be a lot of fun. I've got this draft is like a solid mix of Mons I've used a shit ton and Mons that I've never touched for one reason or another. So I think this is going to be a really fun season, really experimental season. And if things start going to shit really fast, then I'll make the appropriate changes as time goes on. But for now, this is what we have. And I'm excited to give it a shot and see if it works. I'll probably give it a couple weeks and see, get through my divisional matchups and see if they work out in those. And then once we get to the end of that, then I'll make my decisions and whatnot. But for right now, this is the team that we have. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe if you have not already. Until next time, guys, I'm PokePrimer, and I'm signing off. Peace.